Alrighty, y'all, let's talk Eastern Conference play-in games from last night. I had a couple of really good games, actually. I don't know if you want to call the second game a good game, but at least in my opinion, it was a fun game to watch nonetheless. But let's talk about Sixers Heat first. So the Miami Heat looked like they were going to run away with this one early, and then this man, Nick Batum, decided he was going to become the Philadelphia, messiah out of nowhere. So shout out Nick Batum. But let's take a look at this first. We kind of didn't get these rotations right at all coming into this game. The Miami Heat were without a couple players. They were without Terry Rozier, and they decided not to play Duncan Robinson at all. So the Terry Rozier one, obviously he's probably still hurt or something like that, but not playing Duncan Robinson and replacing him more with a Jaime Jaquez here was an interesting move, to say the least. They also, because Rozier wasn't in the game, and this isn't the position that he played, but they went with Nikola Jovic playing the 4, so basically just slide everybody up from here. But he didn't play a ton of minutes. They just kind of slotted him into the first 5, and he had a good game all said and done for the 14 minutes that he played. He hit every shot that he took. He got some rebounds, was competitive on defense, so maybe Nikola Jovic gets a couple more minutes, but I found myself throughout this game just kind of questioning why guys like Patty Mills weren't in the game, because guys like DeLon Wright were, and DeLon Wright played really good defense in that zone, and that's probably why they had him in the game, is they wanted to go with more of a zone attack. But I kept finding myself being like, well, why isn't Patty Mills in the game still? Why not Duncan Robinson? But who am I to question the greatness that is Eric Spoelstra, right? I mean, that's just he's got it down, man. I can't outcoach him by any means of the word. And in the first half, it looked like they were just going to run away with it. So I was like, okay, fair enough. I found it odd though. I just think the value that Duncan Robinson brings to the game, with his gravity of him just constantly moving around, being such a deadly 3-point shooter, opens up other things offensively. But I understand Jaime Jaquez has a little more dynamic to his offense. And I did feel there was a couple times where he was forcing the issue a bit much, but he's a rookie playing in his first playoff, play in, playoff type game. So shout out Jaime Jaquez. At the end of the day, he had a good game. But yeah, obviously Jimmy Butler going down with injury and sounding like he's not going to play in the next play-in game tonight is a really unfortunate one. But Philadelphia, man, shout out to Nick Nurse. They made adjustments and started making shots. And honestly, they all were just playing inspired by the likes of Kyle Lowry and Nick Batum. So Kyle Lowry actually started kind of at the 2, and they moved Buddy to the bench, which I didn't like that at all. I think that's part of the reason that it wasn't going so well at first. I think the spacing that Buddy Hield brings, and I know Kyle Lowry played really good defensively and stuff and had great moments there, but I just think Buddy Hield fits better with this first 5. I just think he gives Maxey some space to operate. He gives guys like Tobias Harris an obvious next swing man. Joel Embiid, obviously, just having a guy like that to kick out to is always going to be important, right? But again, at the end of the day, it was Nick Batum that just started doing everything for them, whether it was defensively or just hitting these timely threes over and over again, where he was having to create a little bit too, crashing to the glass and making a big play, having huge blocks late in the game. It was really incredible to see. And are we going to get that out of Nick Batum going forward? Most likely not, but it was cool to see him turn back the clock a little bit. We should talk about Joel Embiid, obviously, though, because he just looked exhausted from the start. I mean, Doris Burke was even saying that, she's he was tired after warm-ups, and he hardly warmed up. And it's so hard to get back into basketball shape, y'all. For those of you that, don't play basketball, if you guys haven't played basketball in a while, and you try to go back in and start playing that, it's not going to work. I don't care how in shape you are. If you're running marathons and then you go to try to play basketball, you're going to be gassed, because it's just it's a different type of cardio training, and you kind of have to do interval training to even somewhat replicate it. But I've just never found that you get in basketball shape without playing basketball. I just don't think it's a thing. But what does this mean for Embiid going forward? I mean, he had a decent enough game. I mean, it wasn't the most efficient thing in the world, but he still had 23 points and 15 rebounds, and he made some really timely plays. Yeah, there were also times where it was oh man, he is stuck in no man's land. But really, the Heat didn't get a ton going off of Embiid playing in that drop coverage, not like we thought they would. So I'm kind of curious going forward, if they just continue to kind of let Embiid just sit defensively and hope that nobody really gets anything going. Because now they get to play the Knicks, right? And just thinking through logistically, who's on their roster and what they're doing, yeah, no, they're probably going to do a lot of the same, where he gets to kind of hang back because Mitchell Robinson doesn't get too involved in the offense overall. Aside from a couple screens here and there, they're not using him as a hub at all. So Embiid probably can just sit back in this series and do a little bit more. But yeah, no, shout out the Philadelphia 76ers, man. Really came back, really gave it to them. We hope Jimmy Butler's okay. It just doesn't feel like the playoffs if Jimmy Butler goes down. But anyway, let's talk Bulls Hawks. All right, Bulls fan gets to talk about his team now. So again, they went with the smaller ball lineup where DeRozan moved to here, and you had more of a Ayo Dosunmu at the 2 and a Caruso, who also seems like he's probably out for the next game against Miami. So both teams going to be pretty banged up at this point. But yeah, no, this is more so what you were looking at, and we'll move Torrey Craig there. This is more so what you were looking at for a lineup here. The Hawks lineup was pretty accurate. Vit didn't end up playing, so that just is what it is. They ended up just going with like Wesley Matthews, and he didn't really contribute much to the game. DeJounte Murray was really doing his thing. He was just spot hunting the whole game, not really playing necessarily like within the team system, just kind of playing on his own, and that's been part of the struggle for Atlanta this whole season, right? Like he's getting to those little like mid-range shots that he really likes, getting some of his push shots going. He's hitting some threes, right? DeJounte Murray was hitting. Trae Young was not hitting quite as much. He had some interesting threes. He also airballed like some shots, and he just, again, also getting back into game shape and everything. He played a little bit more within the system where him and Capella were really like touching base a lot, but I didn't really necessarily see him playing well within anybody else either. It just doesn't seem like these two have fit in with any of these players, and the Hawks just can't figure out how to play defensive basketball despite the fact that they've got like pretty solid defensive players on this team. And obviously they're missing guys like Jalen Johnson and Sadiq Bey and Onyeka Okongwu. Those are very important players to this team to make them go, but like it's not like the team was going really even when they were in the game. So Atlanta's just going to have a lot of questions to answer this offseason. I saw a comment saying that this was, I can't, they called it the Blow It Up Bowl. That's what they called it. And I'm like, that is a perfect name for this series because both these teams realistically should blow things up. But, you know, that just is what it is, right? And we'll see what happens with DeJounte and Trae Young. I'll make an argument that it's more beneficial to the team long term to trade Trae Young now because he's going to have more value now and he's on a longer term contract. I just don't know how you build a team around him in time to where you don't risk losing him at some point. And DeJounte Murray, I feel like while statistically he's been worse on the team than Trae Young has this year, I feel like you have a better shot of building a cohesive system around him at some point than Trae Young. So that's just my 2 cents though, so take it as you will. Shout out Bogdan Bogdanovic, by the way, too. He was just creating his own thing. The Hawks just never looked like they were playing team basketball the whole time. Like they all had good individual moments. The only good team moments we saw were a bunch of Trae Young to Clint Capella alley-oops. The Bulls, though, on the other hand, played with a ton of energy, especially defensively, even with Caruso down, which it makes it all the more impressive. Guys like Dosunmu, Kobe White was playing great defense. DeRozan was. Javonte Green was really bringing the energy. Andre Drummond was getting into it with people. Like that's the Chicago Bulls that like I want to see, right? Like that's the stuff I want to see going forward. You look at this team, right, and you saw we knew DeRozan was going to do his thing, right? We knew he was going to find his little mid-range shots, get to his shot, and put in like the silkiest jumper in the NBA. That's what he did. He was impossible to stop for them. It was awesome. But even more unstoppable was Kobe White. Now, obviously, as a Bulls fan, I'm a little bit biased to things, but I'm also not a big Bulls supporter right now, and I both can be true at the same time. But, man, Kobe White, that was the best version of Kobe White that I've seen, where, and I didn't see most of that this year. Like, obviously, he's had a much better season, but I've never seen him play within a system so well and play to the speed that he wants so well. Like, it wasn't just him, like, barrel rushing at things and turning the ball over sometimes or hitting some crazy threes. Like, he was hitting them with like legit really good moves, like getting by them, like pausing, hitting them with counters, and then figuring out what he wants to do after that. Is he going to make a skip pass to the corner? Is he going to lay it up? And a lot of times he was just able to lay it up because he's big and strong and then quick, and so that was awesome. He literally got to the rim whenever he wanted to, and if they contested him, then he was kicking it out to a shooter, and DeMar was hitting his threes, Javonte was out there, and he was cutting, and they got some nice dunks off of it, but it then translated to the defensive end where Kobe White's calling things out and being like, hey, we got to be here doing this. Dosunmu's out there hitting shots and playing good defense. It's just like, okay, you've got a interesting little backcourt here now between these two, if that's how they're going to play, right? And it's just cool to see the growth between these guys. I truly think last night that game for Kobe White could be a turning point in his career. Sometimes when you're on a big stage like that and you just have a moment where everything starts to click and you're just like, oh, I can just do this kind of stuff whenever I want. And like, mind you, he's beaten Trae Young and DeJounte Murray, and DeJounte Murray's a pretty good defender overall, but just not this year. But if you can just create like that at all times, like that opens up so much for this team, and hopefully that's the kind of point guard Kobe White can be for the Bulls going forward. But otherwise, yeah, Drummond, crazy on the glass. Javonte Green, crazy just everywhere, just being an energetic bunny, which is awesome. I love Javonte Green. He's probably my favorite player on the team. And then Vucevic still can't hit a three to save his life, but great in the paint. Great roll man, like strong finisher around the rim, right? Defensively, he cannot guard a pick and roll to save his life. I don't know why he lets Clint Capella get under him every single time. Like, I understand that we're trying to help and not let Trae Young get like a floater, but you have to keep like the roll man parallel with you as much as possible. Otherwise, they literally just throw it over you like you saw happen each time, and that's even easier than the floater. But yeah, they obviously are going to play the Heat in the next series, so what does that mean for them? Well, Jimmy Butler might not play, and Alex Caruso might not play. I'll be doing a breakdown of that game later where we can talk about it a little more, but the Bulls have a legitimate chance with Jimmy Butler out. The Heat always find a way to rally and everything, but they might not have Terry Rozier either, and it's like, okay, you don't have two of your best scorers. Like, what does that mean for the team? And especially with these guys that guarded the three-point ball so well yesterday. Like, I don't know. You bring that same energy, it could get ugly really, really fast. But anyway, that's just a quick recap of the games and everything. I wanted to keep this one a little bit shorter than the one yesterday. But yeah, you guys let me know what you think, and we'll see you guys later in the day with another video.